Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Rob Patry Live, Sunday night here in St. Andrews by the Sea. Oh, we've got a fantastic show for you this evening. This one you're going to want to record and watch over and over again. My guest this evening is none other than Mr. Don Darling, the Mayor of St. John. Welcome to St. Andrews.
Thank you very much, Rob.
And welcome to Charlotte County.
Thank you, thank you.
You've come a long way.
I have come a long, well, not that long, but I mean,
Was it like a 4-hour drive to St. John?
It was a little less.
A little less than that.
Yeah.
You were actually, you know what, I'm going to tell the folks here, you were here for the weekend.
I was.
And you had a good time in St. Andrews.
I had a great time. St. Andrews is a beautiful town.
It is. Isn't it an incredible place?
Absolutely gorgeous.
Just like St. John.
Very, very much so.
So, I'm going to ask you a few background questions to start off. Okay. How long have you been the mayor of St. John?
So I was elected the mayor in May of 2016. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been long.
Hasn't been
a year
long,
and a half.
no. Yeah, year and a half.
Do you know there was another momentous occasion? That's when we moved to New Brunswick in May.
Okay.
So, you know, we can, we're simpatico that way.
We are. We have a connection.
Yes, you became mayor and I moved here.
Two great things happened in May of 2016.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you say that because I'm always trying to drag compliments and good things out of my guests, and we're off to a good start.
Perfect.
So I'm going to mark this down as have Mr. Darling back again because he's a friendly fellow.
Thank you.
So how are things in St. John?
Yeah, things are great. You know, we have a clear plan to move the city forward in terms of the two main themes for me, Rob. As a candidate, I campaigned as the growth mayor or the growth candidate, and the mayor that was going to spend an awful lot of time trying to get the fiscal house in order. And I'm very proud of the achievements thus far. You know, it's a big ship, if I can use that analogy. It doesn't turn quickly. But we're making some progress, and we've got some real momentum happening in St. John.
Good. Now, as you know, Charlotte County and St. John have a great connection. As we were just chatting before the show, we've got a great highway, Highway 1 between us. And you, as I had put down in our social media site, you're our go-to city.
That's right.
When we need, restaurants, entertainment, shopping, you are the place to go to. So I think we have a good relationship, and we need to build upon that.
Absolutely. You know, look, St. John plays that role for Charlotte County. It plays that role in the other direction up towards Sussex. So there's no question that St. John plays a vital role in not only supporting the other communities through Charlotte County, as we mentioned, but plays a vital role in the economy of New Brunswick. So St. John accounts for over 20%. It's about 22% of the province's GDP.
Right.
So we are an economic hub. There are a number of people that travel from Charlotte County to St. John on a daily basis.
Yes.
To work.
Right.
Point LePro, the NB Power facility just outside of St. John, is an important hub for many people from Charlotte County, as it is for many people from St. John. And I think that the opportunity that exists for St. John, Charlotte County, St. Andrews, St. Stephen, and any of the other rural areas, Blacks Harbor, is for us to figure out, not only what we're doing well today and celebrate that, but I also think there's some opportunity, Rob, to build on our strengths and figure out how can we come together and leverage those strengths and see our economies flourish and the quality of life that our citizens are enjoying. How can we see that flourish? So I think there's some more work to do. Being a new mayor, 16 or so months into my job, trying to wrestle our plans for growth, trying to wrestle our plans for fiscal responsibility to sort of crystallize those plans. I've certainly had some discussions with the mayor from St. Stephen. We've had some discussions with civic leaders from St. Andrews, but we haven't spent a lot of time together yet. So there's some opportunity, I think, there to build on that.
and I really think there is. And if I can be so bold as to call myself a liaison between the two towns, because we love going to St. John. We love coming to St. Andrews. We feel that, my wife and I have been to Fredericton, we've been to Moncton, we've been through, certainly the southern portion of the province, and there's just so many great things to see and enjoy all over the place. And I think in many ways in the past it's been somewhat divisive, and it's sort of an us and them attitude, and I think it's important that we all come together and see our strengths and support each other in all aspects.
Right. Yeah. And look, I would agree with that. I think it's easy to fall victim, to the us and them thinking.
Right.
But I think to take that to, to put an option on the table from that approach, to synergize, to come together, to find ways for all of Southern New Brunswick to prosper and flourish. I think it has to go by conversation. It can't just be talk. It can't be, so I think what we have to find a way to do is come together, whether that's through civic leadership, the mayors coming together and saying, look, let's talk about where we are and how we can come together and work and synergize. But I also believe that our business groups, so our chambers of commerce, our local business groups and business leaders should also be coming together to say, look, how do we bring something substantial to the table, put some direction and some details to paper, put a bit of a plan together so that we've got something substantial to work on. And I'm a results-oriented guy, Rob. So I get frustrated when I go into rooms and I go to meetings or I go to I get invited to groups and what I see or I hear is a lot of conversation happening, but no objectives, no plan, no sort of a vision for where we are today and where we might be able to take our municipalities and how we may be able to improve citizens' lives. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in taking it from talk to some type of plan that we can put some objectives and some measurement around.
Yes.
And then let's go chase it. Let's go figure out what we can have ourselves look like in 2020 or 2025,
right,
and work our way toward those goals.
And as you know, Don, this is a call-in show, so if you have any questions for Mr. Darling about a plethora of things, we'll be talking about a lot tonight, but give us a call at 506-529-8826, or if it's long distance, hopefully we've got some folks in St. John watching tonight at 855-529-8826. Now, Don, your background is business. So you've run a business. You were in the construction business for many years. So you have a good understanding of fiscal responsibility, of budgets, and not just, spending your way out of problems.
Right.
And I know that the Maritimes over the years have had their issues and problems, but we're all working now and we want to resolve things. So your attitude of let's get things done, to flesh out things, I think is great.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Rob. Yeah, I think, two things. So I'm new to politics. So, if you had bumped into me 3 or 4 years ago and told me that I'd be sitting here with you tonight as the mayor of my municipality, I probably would have laughed.
Right.
And
I have the same feeling, because if you'd have said you'll be on a show with me, I said, what show? What are you talking about?
That's right. That's right. Well, you never know. Look,
I'm busy napping at home watching TV, and now I'm here on a Sunday night with you.
Here we are. Well, I'm glad that's where we are. So look, I was raised by my parents to be part of the solution. So in a way, jokingly, I often say I blame them. When we were little, our parents would never let us make excuses. They would always ask us what we thought we would do about it. They would always encourage us to take some level of action, even if those were 7, 8, 10-year-old ideas. When you're small, they probably weren't great ideas, but our parents would encourage us to be part of the solution. So, I had a successful corporate career over 20 years. I say successful. That was a career of highs and lows. Nothing in life is perfect. Yeah. But I learned a lot. I wore 2 hats. I spent my time in a business development role, and I was also fortunate to be a shareholder of a very successful Atlantic Canadian business. And I left that organization, and I went to the other end of the spectrum. I opened my own small business as a consultant. And I read a newspaper article one day, and that was that the former mayor of our city was not going to reoffer. And I do the same thing every time I tell the story. I sort of rub my belly. I got a bit of a feeling in my gut that what the city needed most is it needed leadership.
Yes.
It needed energy and passion. It needed somebody that could drive results. And I was probably not the only one, but I thought about it. I made a series of phone calls, and I contemplated what would it look like if Don Darling threw his hat into the ring. And I guess the rest is history. And I think what I see and what I've witnessed so far 17 months into this job, or 16 or 17 months in, is that so often I'm in a room or I'm hearing about ideas that people have that are, they're very passionate about them. But what I know from my business background is that the fundamentals are so critical. So what problem are we trying to solve? What are the objectives or the goals that we're going to set? What actions are we going to take? How are we going to measure our progress? And who are we going to hold accountable?
Right.
And, fundamentally, Rob, I believe if those things are in place, regardless of what we're chasing, regardless of what we're talking about, we're gonna have a much higher likelihood of getting some success. And, I think we've done a much better job in the last 16 months of putting that type of approach in place. So, as a council, the first thing we had to do is we had to set a series of priorities. What was this council going to be held accountable for over its 4-year mandate? And I have them with me tonight. I write on them.
Right.
This is an active document. I pull it out of my book on a daily basis, and I look at where are we as a council. And what we did is we set 4 main categories, if you will: growth and prosperity, fiscal responsibility, the vibrancy of the city, and service delivery, valued service delivery. So that was the starting point, and we arrived at these priorities for the city only after having fully engaged with citizens. So we did over 10 in-person engagements. We did online surveying, and we did phone surveying. And what I was so pleased about, Rob, is that I campaigned as a candidate on growth, and the citizens told us through these surveys and through these engagements, the #1 priority for them was the economy, was growth.
Yeah.
So, I think you have to start with a bit of a focus and a plan. We started with these priorities. Growth has, been in our conversation and in our plans from day one on the job for me as mayor, and council endorsed these priorities. And then the other bookend, I think, is fiscal responsibility. St. John is a $200 million business.
Yes.
That's the way that I think about St. John. So, so that I don't ramble on too long about this, I would just say that I think that what resonated with the voters in St. John is here's a guy in me, a candidate, that came with a strong business background. I'm known for being a pretty passionate person. I work hard. I'm results oriented, and the 2 promises I shared with you before we started the show. #1, that I would live my values and my principles. And #2, that I wouldn't make promises that I couldn't keep. So it makes me a pretty interesting politician.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now, from a business standpoint, because one of the things I've written down here and I wanted to talk to you a little about was the shopping mall, McAllister Place, and Sears. So there's been a concern, and of course, they just announced recently that they're going to be liquidating all their assets and closing down all their stores. And I think the shopping mall, I don't know, it's funny, we came from Ontario and there were a lot of shopping malls, but a lot of shopping malls are suffering anyway because it's kind of a business model that just I don't think is working the way that it used to. So how is this affecting the community, the closure of Sears, and what will happen to the mall? Well,
it's a great question. First of all, anytime that somebody loses their job, anytime that somebody, as you know, part of the Sears announcement was that back in January that call centers contact centers were announced for St. John and Edmundston. I know the mayor of Edmundston, Cyril Simard, feels the same way as I do, that we feel terrible for the people that have been impacted by this closure. The critics would say, well, look, what a silly idea. The province shouldn't have invested. And look, of all the things I love about my job, there's many that I could list for you. I can tell you resoundingly what I can tell you I dislike. Right. And I talk about it all the time, is I hate the politics. Yeah. We need solutions.
So you know why you shouldn't have become a politician?
Well, no. I became a politician. I'm trying to, though, redefine, Rob, what it means to be a politician. Yes. I'm honest, I'm blunt, I don't need people to like me. Whether people vote for me ever again is not something I think about ever. So a couple things. One, again, just to register that I feel terrible for the people that have been impacted by the loss of their employment with Sears. But you know, as you say, it is. I think it's a changing world. You know,
yeah.
we have to be cognizant, as any municipality does across this country, that the changing landscape of retail and what is the impact of that. So you know, Sears is a national brand that unfortunately wasn't able to find a way to stay relevant, in my opinion, to consumers so that they could have a successful business model moving forward to have them go another 50 years.
Exactly.
I don't know all of the details of why they failed, but clearly they were not able to attract enough business and keep their business model relevant.
Yeah, and I think that, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
but I
no
mean,
problem.
it's something, you know, I don't know all the shopping big stores that you had here in the Maritimes, but looking at Ontario, we had Simpsons, which was the first one to go, I guess, in the 80s, and then Eaton's, and now Sears. And I think that it's an evolving thing that's occurring. I have a friend in California who had just posted that Nordstrom in a big mall had closed, and yet, you know, these are, again, the same type of huge anchor stores and shopping malls that are kind of going by the wayside, and more people are doing business online.
Well,
I mean, Amazon, as you know, is now courting different towns around the U.S. and Canada. Yeah, you know, if St. John might want a big Amazon, you should change your name to St. Amazon. That's
right.
I think our town was doing that, right?
We could do that.
So, you know, this will draw them in. But it's a changing landscape.
Look,
and it's like one window closes, another one will open.
Look, I think it's important that look, we take these things seriously. You know, anytime that a store is closing, there's an impact to the economy. There's an impact if the model of shopping malls is changing. What is the impact directly to a municipality? Well, if the mall keeps losing tenants, then there's going to be an impact from a municipal tax perspective.
Right.
But you know, I'm thinking as we're having this conversation about an old Jack Welch, the former GE CEO quote, and his quote was that if the pace of change inside an organization is slower than the pace of change outside of that organization, then the end is near.
Yeah.
So look, you know, how do millennials buy today? You know, I'm a tall, big guy. My inseam's 35 inches. My arms are 36 inches.
You're a huge man.
I'm a big guy. I'm a former UFC fighter.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I'm not ignoring it.
So, but you know, my point is that, you know, if the local retail store doesn't have the offering for me, and how can they compete with the range of offering that's happening now? You know, by me going on to the internet and you know, making those kinds of choices. So look, I think the point is around Sears, it's unfortunate. The world is changing around us, and how can we as a municipality, and what role do we even play as a municipality to encouraging our local entrepreneurs, businesses to make sure they're staying relevant? I think we can play a role. You know, we have a number of agencies in St. John, economic development agencies, business improvement organizations like Uptown St. John, and other groups that are charged with helping businesses stay relevant, opening new businesses, entrepreneurs, and so on. And I'll go back again to those fundamentals. You know, any business that tries to open in St. John that doesn't have a business plan, doesn't have a marketing plan, doesn't know who its customers are going to be, doesn't have a cash flow analysis, you know, these would be fundamentals. So I think that those are the types of things that we can help do, Rob, to hopefully give businesses the best chance of staying relevant and staying up with the trends.
Right. So we're going to take ourselves a quick break, and we will be right back on Rob Patry Live with Mayor Don Darling of St. John.
Thank you.
we back? I think we're back. We're back with Rob Patry Live. We've got Mayor Don Darling all the way from the beautiful city of St. John, New Brunswick. Our connection to the city is great. And you know what's really going to help? And I think a lot of people are excited about this, and we need to talk about it more, is this rural links.
That's right.
The bus service.
Right.
So how did that all come to fruition?
Well, look, I was aware of the project, Rob. Honestly, I didn't have any involvement, frankly,
Okay.
but I was certainly aware that the province was thinking about the project. I know the proponents were trying to find a way to make this work, to open up that gateway between, all through Charlotte County into the city. A vital link, I think, for those living outside of the city for a range of reasons. We think it's great for St. John. Would like to say thanks to all of the proponents, thanks to the province for funding this, and for the operators, obviously, who are, putting their skin in the game, if you will, to get this project up and running. And I think it's a great link between, again, all of Charlotte County and into the city. So folks can come in and travel back and forth, do that in an economic way. And, we take for granted, so many of us who have a vehicle, who can jump in the car and off we go. But, I think for those that didn't have that same option, I think this linkage is fantastic.
Yeah, and coming from St. Stephen and being on social media, on Facebook, it's amazing how many times, and it almost happens daily. Is anybody going to St. John today?
Right, yeah.
Is anybody going to the Costco? Is anybody going to Walmart? Could somebody go and pick something up for me? So I think which shows you two things. One, people are wanting to get to St. John, and not everybody, as you say, has a car and has the ability. So I'm hoping that this is a good success, because I think obviously both areas will benefit from it. It brings us, as you say, to you, and you can provide us the essential services and things of that nature that we need.
Sure. I think it's not unlike, I guess sort of go out on a limb here with this new transportation option. Not unlike Sears. I'm going to say it's really the folks that wanted it, the folks that fought for it, it now needs to be used.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be an economic model that's
Absolutely.
viable. As a municipal government, what I can tell you is that there are often many more asks than there is cash available.
Yeah.
So when we invest, we want to make sure that what we're investing in either gives us a return on investment, or it can become self-sustaining.
Yeah.
So I think to the people of Charlotte County who wanted this linkage, I think we have to remind folks that they need to use this service.
Yes.
And again, I have no idea how long the commitment is from the provincial government. I think certainly there's some funds there to get this up and running, but there were an awful lot of people that were upset that Sears closed down here, using that example, but I'm not sure, the day the sales were on and the closeout sales, Sears was packed.
Of
and
course.
The other day of the week, Sears wasn't that busy.
Right. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's really important to not only celebrate, and absolutely the linkage between now Charlotte County with this service, but
Yeah.
I think it's also important to put a challenge out to the people of Charlotte County to use this. So
Yeah.
you may, even those people that have the option of putting the key in the ignition and driving by themselves from St. Stephen to St. John, I'd ask you to consider using this service.
Right.
Because
And making it a viable,
that's
cost-efficient.
the point. And
Yeah.
look, I have no interest other than seeing it be successful.
Well, it's logical
yeah.
thinking that you want to make sure, if you're going to put such a service out there,
Right.
that people are going to use it. Because if the bus is going back and forth twice a day with one or two people on it, it won't be long until it's gone.
Right.
So, yeah, I would suspect, and I mean, I don't know, again, like you, I don't know a lot of the background about what was looked into, if there was, surveys done and questionnaires put out to say, is this something we need? Obviously, somebody thought, yeah, we do.
Right.
And again, will it come to fruition? Will it become a solid thing that people are going to use?
That's right. Yeah, and then I think the bigger picture of what we're talking about is, why is this linkage important? I think it removes barriers for people. It allows them to get to St. John for everything from doctor's appointments to shopping to visiting with friends and family. but I think it also is just an example of how the region can come together.
Yes.
You know, and to me, everything links back to the economy for people's ability to thrive. And you know, I was in Calgary recently, and I had the pleasure of meeting with Mayor Nenshi. And you know, the Mayor Nenshi is the mayor of a city that has 1.2 million people. And as you know, we have 750,000 people in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
Southern New Brunswick is pretty small on a grander scale. You know, we're not even a decent-sized city in North America. Mm-hmm. The point being, Rob, that I think we have to find every way possible to magnify, to punch above our weight, to come together, to you know, to not, you know, even it goes this far in my mind, not duplicate, not fight with each other, not fight for a rink every 15 minutes, a field every 15 minutes. And I know that that's difficult, but I believe that we need to be thinking much bigger and broader and longer term than we have been, and having those conversations and saying, okay, how does let's use St. Stephen and St. John, how do both of these communities thrive? And what are those services that you've identified that the big city can provide? And how does that small community thrive as well? And I think having that clarity, understanding how we help each other in terms of the economy, coming together as civic leaders, coming together as the business community. And you know, the other example you used, you know, a while back was the Amazon example. And a number of people reached out to me when Amazon announced. And look, I was excited about that opportunity, but I describe myself as a glass half full realist. Mm-hmm. You know, it will take hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion, to land that Amazon option. Yeah. So look, you know, we don't have tens of millions to put a bid in. Yeah. We don't meet the minimum requirement. All of New Brunswick doesn't meet the minimum requirement. But putting Amazon aside, how can we in southern New Brunswick come together? How can St. Andrews, St. Stephen, you know, St. John, and all of the communities in between pick something and come together and say, you know, we're gonna land an opportunity. We're gonna land a cannabis manufacturing opportunity. That's something that's coming our way for an economy. Yes. And we don't care where it is. Yeah. You know, we don't care if it's in St. John. We don't care if it's just outside of St. John. But we're gonna come together. We're gonna find the workers. And we're all gonna prosper, because as the economy, you know, improves for everyone, we'll all improve. Yeah. So it takes leadership. As I'm saying that, you get in your own little corners, and you think, boy, we've got to get that win. But I think for the prosperity of the region, it's something we have to spend more time on.
And with that in mind, and again, we talked a little bit prior to the show about this us and them mentality of, here's Fredericton, here's St. John, over there's Moncton. We have really no connection. But we should have a connection. Mm-hmm. As you say, when you add up the entire population of this province, it's far less than a lot of medium-sized cities in North America.
That's right.
And our distance, although, to some may appear far, it really isn't. And we need to pull together with a common ground.
That's right.
We can't afford to have all these duplicate functions, places, what have you. It's got to be a sort of a solid base. Yeah. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think the first sign that I've taken as a mayor is that on May the 10th of 2016, Mayor Arnold, Mayor O'Brien from Fredericton, Mayor Arnold from Moncton, and myself did an interview, and I believe it was with Steve Murphy. I know it was with Steve Murphy. And Steve said to us, will you folks get together? All three of you are new, will you get together? And we jumped on that opportunity. Right. We started what we were calling the Tri-Cities Mayors Meetings. And since then, this November we'll be meeting again. That will be our fourth or fifth meeting together. We've signed a memorandum of understanding. So to build on what you've identified, Rob, how can these three municipalities come together, and what are we focused on? Those three municipalities, first and foremost, play a big role in the province of New Brunswick. We have the majority of the population of the province. We represent probably in the range of about 70% of the province's GDP. And so there's 3 areas that we're working on. We come together and we think about, high level, big picture, longer term type issues. We come together and we talk about, everything from procurement and cost savings and driving value for our citizens and synergizing. And that is accelerating our ability to perform as individuals. And then lastly, around policy. Right. So how do we improve the working relationship that we have with the provincial government so that, these urban centers, when they thrive, all of New Brunswick will thrive.
Yeah, that's right. It works that way. Yeah. Now, if you hear some funny noises there, Don, I think we've got a call. We have Jay from St. Andrews. Are you there, Jay?
I am.
How are you this evening?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good. Now, do you have a question for Mr. Darling?
I do. It's very nice to see you, Your Worship, and thank you for coming to St. Andrews.
Thank you, Jay.
I was very encouraged by some of your recent earlier remarks about you not being a political politician, and that you are a results-oriented, successful businessman. So, with that in mind, in your role as mayor, St. John has been it's been well written in the newspaper about the literacy and poverty rates among children, and they are alarming. With 50% of the Anglophone population and 60% of the Francophone population of New Brunswick reading at a level 2, they can't even tell you what prescription they're taking, how to follow it. I see that as a big problem, a huge problem. And I also see the problem of children 1 in 6 going to bed hungry, as I see those as hugely fundamental, important issues. From your perspective as an action-oriented, non-political businessman, what steps are you planning to make, and what kind of time frame are you planning to accomplish these in?
Those are great questions. Thank you. So a couple of things. First of all, the issue of poverty in our city, in particular, poverty in New Brunswick, poverty anywhere, is completely unacceptable to me. Having said that, this isn't about waving a magic wand. It's about having a plan, making sure the plan is focused on the right problem. As I said earlier, if you've been listening through the whole show to Rob, about having objectives in that plan and taking action and measuring progress. Some would say, and let me tell you as well, that the issue of poverty is one that's deeply personal to me. My mom and dad stopped getting along, which is a polite way of saying, went through a nasty divorce when I was a younger child. And I had firsthand experience living in poverty. I've never forgotten that experience. The first day on the job, in my role as mayor, I put a sticky note on my phone that says "Serve the people," and that's a daily reminder to me as to the job that I have, the responsibilities of the job. During the campaign, excuse me, many of my folks on my team would remind me, and they're correct, that some of the questions that you're asking me tonight are of provincial responsibility and federal responsibility. And my answer to that simply was that they may be provincial and federal in nature, but I'm going to be involved. I'm going to advocate. I'm going to fight. So one of the things that I observed fairly quickly in St. John is that there is a tremendous amount of work happening in St. John. And my concern is that I think there's quite a bit of duplication. So I just want to qualify for anyone that's going to see this. I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, these kids that we're talking about that are living in poverty, these families that are living in intergenerational poverty, as you say, the literacy challenges that we're facing, they deserve for all of us as leaders to come together and put these plans in place. So I think a few tangibles that I can speak to. One is that, and this is a provincial initiative, but certainly we were at the table and advocating for it. I want to thank the Premier for this. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's an organization called Living SJ in St. John, Living St. John. It's a collective impact model where they have identified 4 pillars, education, with literacy being a key component, health, employment, and accommodations and housing. The provincial government has put $10 million in funding in place, $2 million a year over the next 5 years. And that is an innovation fund. So that's just been announced. I think that's a big win for St. John, New Brunswick. I don't know if you know Dr. Erin Schreier. She has a literacy program called ELF. That's in St. John. That's just received some new funding. So there's a number of programs that have received some key funding, but the role that I plan on playing here, I'm not an expert in these programs, I'm not an expert on these files, but what the energy that I can bring to this is bringing those fundamentals as a business, a person with business background, as a person that's results oriented. What I can make sure that I do is that when I'm in the rooms, when I'm being briefed, when people are presenting their plans to me, that if I don't feel that the objectives are clear enough, if I don't feel like we're being bold enough, if I don't feel like the accountability is built into those models, I can say so, and I can demand that something be changed. So, the federal MP, Wayne Long, has been incredibly committed as well to poverty reduction, to moving the numbers on literacy. We are hoping to become, we've been named as one of the poverty reduction cities with Minister Duclos, Jean-Yves Duclos, federally. We're hoping some new funds will be coming for us there. But at the end of the day, I think what we need to do is we need to make sure that whatever we're doing, there's a plan in place, there's clear measurement in place, and I wish I could articulate the 5-point plan for you tonight, but what I know we've done is, first, we've secured some new funding. Secondly, I think we are absolutely, with organizations like Living SJ and the United Way in St. John, changing the way that these organizations are being funded, that if there's not a business plan and if the results and the objectives are not identified and the accountability measures are not in place, they're not going to get funding anymore. So I feel really good about that. And I think they're just, as a municipal mayor and council, staying at the table and being involved with our provincial and federal partners so that we can make sure we're actually moving forward and we're changing lives of young people, and we're changing the lives of families, and wherever we are today, next year, the year after that, and the year after that, we're moving the results in the right direction.
That's wonderful. Okay, thank you so much for answering that question so well. I appreciate your work.
Thank you for the call, and anytime you want to have a chat, just reach out and give me a call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate the call. Excellent question. Cheers. Good night. Yeah, no, I think he certainly brought up a great point that we children going to bed hungry is certainly something none of us wants to see.
No.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. It's time for a break again.
Okay.
We'll be right back with Mr. Don Darling, Rob Patry Live. Okay, so we're back with Rob Patry Live. The last 15 minutes of the show, Mr. Darling, you were just telling me how fast it's going, and
Yeah.
you were telling me how fantastic a host I am.
You're
and
fantastic,
Please
yeah.
slow down with the compliments.
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
because you know I'm a very modest person,
That's right.
and all of this love coming from you,
That's
I
right.
can only take so much.
I'm having a lot of fun.
Oh, good. Well, that's good to hear, and thank you, Jay, once again for that very important, great call. Now, something we talked about again, and this has been an interesting week in the town of St. Stephen, and one of the reasons I reached out to you is because you had a similar, not exactly the same, but a similar thing occur in St. John with the Gay Pride Parade.
Right.
Now, was this the first Gay Pride Parade that you had in St. John? Or
No, we've been having the parade for many years.
Okay.
I was honored in year one as mayor to be the marshal of the parade, something that I gladly accepted and proudly marched in the parade. And so this was my second parade this year.
Okay.
Pride parade.
Now, you had gone on to social media, I believe, and had stated that you would be attending the parade, and there was a bit of a backlash, of which you responded, I thought, in a wonderful way, in an honest way, and in a way that sort of showed people where you stand and where we should all stand. And we're getting a sort of a similar thing here in Charlotte County and in St. Stephen, where we've got a small school here, the St. Stephen Middle School, is wanting to paint a crosswalk in the rainbow colors, and they had, you know, through an act of kindness and generosity, I think, towards the students, said, we want everybody to feel safe here in this community. We want everybody to feel comfortable, and there was a bit of backlash from folks. And you know what? I don't understand that, Don, and I don't understand. What is people's concern? Where do you think that comes from? Where does that stem from?
Look, I don't know. I mean, all I can share with you is that you know, in St. John, look, my vision for St. John is that we are a diverse, inclusive community where folks are safe, that not only feel safe, they are safe. As civic leaders, I think it's our responsibility to be decisive and to lead. And sometimes that means, you know, setting out opinion that maybe is a bit ahead of the, you know, even the community. And I think it's incredibly important that we not let a small number of people, or even frankly, if it's a large number of people, allow any level of a lack of inclusivity or bigotry or hatred to exist in our community. So you know, I'm surprised. I thought more people, frankly, would tag me in this. I took a very strong position in St. John. I didn't take that position, though. Let me be crystal clear, Rob, to you and to everyone at home. I didn't take that position as a father, or excuse me, as a mayor, or as a father. I took that position as a human being.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I think this is a very important time for the town of St. Stephen.
Yeah.
And if I had any advice to give, my advice would be to make a quick and a decisive decision on what signal does the leadership in St. Stephen want to send about its community. I believe I've read that there's a rally happening. Maybe it happened today, or it's happening this
tomorrow,
week. Tomorrow,
which I will give all the details at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing that up, because it is important that we stand in unity for something that everybody on this planet deserves.
Yeah, look, I don't understand it. I mean, I was raised by great parents. When my folks split, I was raised by a very strong mother. You know, I want people to be happy. I want people to feel, again, safe. You know, we have a diverse community in St. John. I believe that love is love. I don't, you know, I do my best not to judge. You know, I'm a human being, so we all fall victim at times. But I think this is is a very important time for St. Stephen. I think that the press has not been great. I don't doubt that, just like in my community, when this issue came up, and quite decisively, I told the individual who threatened never to vote for me again that they could take their, I won't repeat exactly the words, but in case there's any young listeners or watchers, but that they could take their votes and they could stick their votes. And that's truly how I believe, what I believe, and leadership is important on an issue like this. And I was quite surprised. I mean, I had a tremendous amount of support for my position, but I also had a number of people that were using all kinds of reasons as to why this wasn't right, and why a community shouldn't do it.
Yes.
Religion and all kinds. And I believe, I'm a person of faith. I consider myself to be a Christian. Yeah. And at the end of the day, regardless of what the books say, I think we're in 2017, and I think it's important that communities show inclusivity and diversity and welcoming, being welcoming, and I think these are important times for our community. So, look, it's I was a bit surprised, and I think that likely the community is going to speak very loudly here over the next couple of days.
Yeah, I think it's something that will get resolved, because I think it's something that when you look at the community as a whole, it's only going to benefit when you get more diversity. Right. When, in some ways, I remember reading that New Brunswick was a little bit behind the times on immigration, and every now and then that old, wound gets reopened that, well, immigrants are taking our jobs. All these strange people coming in, and we're going to have to kowtow to them, and we won't be able to do this. And it's the irony is that everybody wants the same thing. Mm-hmm. We want to be able to walk down the street safely. We want to be able to engage with others. We want to be able to go to a restaurant and eat and watch a movie and have a laugh and enjoy our community. And what we need to look upon are the things that we share in common, rather than the things that make us different. And the things that make us different are the things that are great about our humanity.
Look, I totally agree, Rob. And you probably have a couple of other topics, but I always think about, what if this were my family? What if this was my daughter, my son, myself, and when, I took the stand that I took in St. John, which again, I would do tomorrow, I'd do the next day, and I didn't do that as a mayor, I did it as a human being. Yeah. I received hundreds of messages from people all over the country that said, thank you for what you did. Yeah. Why and in fact, maybe we should take the lessons from these. It was an elementary school, was it not? Yeah. So maybe,
middle school.
Middle school. So here we have young leaders. Yeah. I never diminish a young person's ability to lead. Yeah. And they are trying to lead right now.
That's right.
And so the old leaders in the community need to sit back and say, these kids they're stepping up, they want to lead. We have high rates of disease, we have high rates of suicide, we have folks that are mental health issues. No wonder, because in some cases we're not allowing people to be themselves. Yeah. So look, I think this is a great opportunity for leadership in St. Stephen to embrace this opportunity to send a very strong signal, and for one of the messages that I received, and whether it be through social media directly, is why do these folks, why does the community need a rainbow colored crosswalk? Why do we need a pride parade? And my answer was simple every time. Well, when straight folks start being discriminated against for being straight, I've never once had a problem walking down the street and holding my wife's hand. No. But if I was walking down the street holding my husband's hand, I would have a problem.
Absolutely.
And I just think it's unacceptable. It's 2017, and I really urge the leadership in St. Stephen to make the right decision.
Yeah, and I think they will. And not wanting to sound cliche, but these kids from the middle school, kudos to them, and they are our future.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know it's something that we repeat again and again, but we want people to come to Charlotte County. We want people, and I know you were just recently had posted something, people of Canada come to St. John. Yeah. The housing prices are fantastic. You know, it's a great lifestyle, but we have to embrace different types of people.
Absolutely.
You know, we are not, you know, just middle-aged white men that are running this world. And now I count myself in there, although I'm not quite middle-aged yet. And I want that. I want that to
on the record.
on the
Sure.
record.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for supporting that.
I think,
But
you know, Rob, we're having this discussion, and I think it's, you know, again, in my role as mayor, I think really what we're talking about is change.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, in New Brunswick, there's 750,000 people, 350,000 work. You know, we have 50% of our province is rural and 50% is urban. You know, we have an aging demographic. You know, we have young people leaving in sort of droves. You know, we're starting to get some positive signals around population. But for me, at the end of the day, it comes down to change.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's be careful if we listen to, you know, like if we don't, so today it's we don't want to paint a crosswalk. Next week it's we don't want to build a new building. The week after that it's we don't want to do this. And you know, I think it's, we've got to be very careful about how we move forward, and we can ignore the fact that we need this, whether it's diversity, it's change, it's economic growth, it's dealing with an old arena that we may not be able to afford anymore. And I think people's you know, resistance to change is something that could be very dangerous for the future of southern New Brunswick.
And I think that if we keep a positive outlook and we think that this will end well, and I know it will, I think this is part of growing pains.
Sure.
That all of a sudden, you know, we've done things this way for so long. We all know we need to change things, you know, and you've been talking about that all night that you've been here. You know, we can't just wish things will happen, and there are ideas that you or I could come up with, or other leaders in the community. We know they're not feasible. They can't be done. We want to be able to make sure that that's something that will work. But change has to come. We can't go by the old ways. And as we get older, or, you know, again, not myself, a lot of other people other than me, because I'm still a very young, vibrant man, but you tend to get stuck in certain things. And you think, well, geez, you know, all these phones and social media and computers and email, I can't take all of this, but it's the way of the world now. And diversity in our community, accepting the LGBTQ, accepting immigrants, different religions, people of different racisms, we have to start to learn to embrace that, because they are our future. We have to change.
Look, I totally agree with you. I think, Rob, there's, you know, if we were having this same conversation and we were talking about, you know, a senior that was refused service at Tim Hortons, or a senior that was refused something that they want, we would be outraged. The community would be outraged. And this is no different. You know, for me, then what we're talking about is we're talking about a couple of things. One, we're talking about you know, rewarding young leaders for something that is a good idea, to show the community that it is an accepting community, to show you know, maybe you know, others in the community that it is a safe place, it is a diverse place, it is a community that is evolving. That's one point. The second point is, and I see it all the time, and that is that I see a vocal minority, regardless of what the issue is, getting together and banging a drum, or sending a couple of emails off, or getting loud. And I think as elected officials, sometimes we give that too much weight. You know, so I talk often in St. John about prudent versus popular. So this might not be a popular decision. I don't know in St. Stephen, okay? It may not be, but what's the prudent thing to do? What's the right signal to send? How does St. Stephen want to be known?
Yes.
And again, you know, we spent probably a bit more time on that topic, but I think the lessons to be learned here are directly applicable to so many other conversations for our region, for our province, for our country. As we move forward.
And I think, I don't think we've spent too much time. And so, you know what, I'd have you come back, and we're almost out of time, but I'd love to have you come back and talk about this more. And I think it's something that our community folks need to discuss. It's not something we can just ignore anymore. And it's all part of the growth process. It's part of the learning process. And as you say, these are our children. our brothers, our sisters, our friends,
parents,
our parents, our
yeah.
neighbors, and we have to support them in every way. And your analogy about going to Tim Hortons was exactly what we're saying. We cannot turn anybody away. And we must make everyone feel happy, feel comfortable, and it's paramount that our children and our youth, who we all will depend on in the future, must feel that this is a safe community to grow in. And that's, I think, all that they're asking.
Totally agree.
So I just wanted to say tomorrow there will be a walk in St. Stephen from 3:30 to 4:30, from the St. Stephen Middle School to the St. Stephen Town Hall. I think everybody should go and walk tomorrow. Show your support for the community in a loving, kind way.
That's right.
This isn't about arguing. This isn't about infighting. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's simply a way to say, look, we embrace you. We're all human beings, as you pointed out so eloquently. And we must cherish that, and we must show everyone in our community that's how we feel about them, that nobody should have this sense of fear, because this makes me feel sad, that anybody should feel this way. And again, repeating myself, but the memory's going, Don. That's one of the reasons I had you on, because I thought, you know, good for you that you stood up and said, oh, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to be everywhere in
Look,
this
I think in
province.
anything there's an opportunity. I think what this has shown us is that there's more work to do. And I think this is a great opportunity, as you say, to peacefully come together to show the community that there's a bit more work to do. And you know, and again, I don't think anyone should lose sight of the fact that this is a very, very important time, I think, for the community.
Yeah.
And you know, there are people likely in the community today who are feeling quite sad about the circumstances, because they feel like they're maybe not safe, not accepted in the community, and if they're not, they're going to leave. And you know,
and that's exactly what we don't
Well,
want.
you likely can't, just like St. John can't afford any further decline of population.
That's right.
Nor can St. Stephen or St. Andrews or Blacks Harbour or St. George or any of these communities.
Exactly.
So look, it's change is not always easy, but I feel confident, as you say, the right outcome will happen.
It will.
Yeah.
And we are out of time. I had a whole list of things I wanted to talk to you, including your time in the UFC, because you know, I know you're a powerful man. I was going to challenge you to a bare knuckle fist fight out in the parking lot. Maybe we could do that next time.
Yeah, that's right.
Don, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. And I hope you'll come back.
I will.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for watching Rob Patry Live. Everybody get out there tomorrow and support the middle school and support peace, love, and harmony. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Perfect.